Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth is provided by CashFly. Pay as you go and start with 2 terabytes free by going to cashfly.com. Use the promo code TWIT. The new Screensavers is brought to you by Audible.com. To download the free audiobook of your choice, go to audiblepodcast.com/NSS. And by Braintree. If you're working on a mobile app and searching for a simple payment solution, check out Braintree. With one simple integration, you can offer your customers every way to pay, period. To learn more and for your first $50,000 in transactions fee-free, go to BraintreePayments.com/NSS. And by the Ring Video Doorbell. With Ring, you can see and talk to anyone at your door from anywhere in the world using your smartphone. It's like caller ID for your home. Get $25 off the Ring Video Doorbell when you go to ring.com/NSS.
Predicting the next big quake, your Windows 10 Top 10, and the photographer to the rock stars. Live from the Twit Brick House in beautiful downtown Petaluma, it's the new Screensavers.
Laporte here, and lo and behold, Jim Cutler.
Jim Cutler on an hour of sleep. Went to bed at 2 o'clock, had to be at the airport at 3 o'clock.
You on a red eye here?
And I'm here, yes.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. We talked to Jim in an earlier show. He's, of course, the voice of Tech TV and many other, like lots of other places. Yeah. And he very kindly gives us his voice announcing for all of our stuff. And it's great to have you.
Thank you.
Have you ever done a show like this before?
No, this is my very first time.
No, he's teasing. You grew up in TV, practically.
I did, yeah. Just like you.
Yeah. Well, no, I grew up in radio.
Did you grow up in radio?
Yeah, more radio. I didn't start doing TV till not so long ago. This is episode 12. I have to tell people this in case they don't know. Recorded July 25th, 2015. We got a great show coming up for you. We're going to have lots more with Jim Cutler. Paul Thurrott is here because this is Windows 10 week.
Yep.
Wednesday, we get Windows 10. Paul's going to give you his top 10 lists for getting ready for Windows 10. Did you read the New Yorker article about how the Pacific Northwest is going to fall into the ocean, and then the ocean's going to spit it back out, and everybody's going to be dead?
And it's not just likely, it's really likely.
Yeah. We've got a seismologist to join us to explain what the Cascadian subduction zone is and why we should all be very worried about that.
Too.
Well, we don't know. It's due.
It's due. They said it could be, what are the chances? 1 in 5 in the next 50 years?
We'll get the geologist to explain it, but my understanding is the last quake that we can find on that zone was in 1700.
Yep.
That over the millennia, the average is every 243 years.
Yep.
Do the math, we're about 70 years overdue.
It should be happening.
Any minute now. Maybe while the show's going on. We'll explain what it's all about. And then you were very excited about Jeremy Cowart.
One of my favorite photographers. Even if you're not into photography, you got to hear this guy.
Yeah.
And you'll see why.
Well, I know why. I love Jeremy. He's one of my favorite people. He has a university. You're taking classes there. Jim is a very accomplished photographer, probably does not need to take classes.
I wanted to get better at portraits, and he's
the king.
He's the guy. You name it in Hollywood, you name the music star, he's done their album cover. So coming up.
We've said this for a long time, and it's taken a while, but people are starting to understand that sometimes giving away your stuff is a good thing. Creative Commons is what we use for our licenses. We're going to talk about Creative Commons. Their senior counsel from the Electronic Frontier Foundation, Sarah Pearson, is here to talk about a Kickstarter project to get businesses to understand why the Creative Commons license is a good idea. We got tech questions coming up, but let's start with Mr. Paul Thurrott, the host of Windows Weekly. Hello, Paul.
Hello.
Wait a minute. What have you know what? I think you have started a candy room for yourself.
I like to be organized, Leo.
Just like Notch from Minecraft, who bought an $80 million mansion, including a candy room. So you're going to have the jelly babies there. And
I have an $8 mansion.
So Windows 10 Wednesday. Now you've been using it since the beginning. In fact, I think you're probably writing a book on it. Would be my guess.
I am. Yes.
Yes,
That's true.
You also, of course, as host of Windows Weekly with Mary Jo Foley, talk about it all the time. We talk about it all the time. But here it is. It's finally happening Wednesday, July 29th. You gave us your top 10 things you need to know about Windows 10 right now. Let's walk through it.
Yeah, I mean, so number one is that it's free, and there's an asterisk on that, although I want to say it's not free, air quotes free, it's really free. You have to be running Windows 7 or Windows 8.1 to upgrade to Windows 10 for free, but once you do, it's free, it's really free, and I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't see hundreds of millions of people upgrading over the next year or so.
There might be some caveats. For instance, upgrades will be forced after you install this, right?
Software updates will be,
Yeah.
Yep.
And it is Windows 7 and 8.1. What about Windows Vista users or XP users? Is there any window for them to get this? Or
There are no Windows Vista users, Leo.
Okay.
We don't. That never
solves
happened.
that problem.
No, I mean, those folks are going to have to pay for it at retail or electronically, and they would pay full price.
This is what the big change is. I mean, in the past, nobody bought Windows to upgrade it. You just bought a new computer. But I think Microsoft recognized that if we're going to get Windows 10 jump started, we got to get everybody possible on it.
Yeah, and that's what the automatic updates are about, or the forced updates. It's just about keeping people up to date. I mean, even on the Pro version, to get support from Microsoft, the PC has to be up to date. So even though you could defer updates, even on Pro, you really do have to keep it up to date.
And this is so that developers have a stable platform to write software for and all of that.
It's also like the motorcycle helmet rule, right? Trying to protect people from themselves a little bit.
Are you saying using Windows 8 could cause brain damage?
No.
Because it could. I mean, I just want to say.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
But
No,
you know what?
brain damage was absolutely involved in Windows 8.
Microsoft has been very unclear on what this is all about. So this is where Paul and Mary Jo are kind of constantly parsing what Microsoft says to better understand it. So free means really free. It's not going to be free, and in a year we start paying. It's free.
That's how they get you moment. It's free.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Number two.
So this is not the first time this has happened, but Windows 7, when it came out, had lower hardware requirements than Windows Vista. Windows 8 had the same hardware requirements, 8.1 had the same, and now Windows 10 does as well.
Wow.
There are special Windows 10 features that require special hardware. If you're going to use Continuum, for example, which is automatic tablet mode, you need a special kind of 2-in-1 device that supports that chip. Cortana needs special audio, or needs audio at all. And that kind of thing. Windows Hello.
The new login thing, Windows Hello, needs a special camera, stuff like that.
Right. But as far as the base hardware requirements, they are the same as they've been now for many, many years.
That makes sense.
It's good news, too, because you're not going to have a compatibility issue. If you're running 7 or 8, chances are pretty good unless you have some sort of weird hardware.
And they're trying to fix that stuff anyway. All the problems that were with 7 and 8, with the incompatibility and I'm not exactly sure what this is because it looks different. It makes sense to do 10 this way. Make it nice and simple.
Good. Number 3, upgrades.
So upgrades used to be really hard to do, and they used to be really unreliable. And if something went wrong, it was really hard to kind of go back to
You mean
what
like
you
the
had.
Windows 8 to 8.1 upgrade or the 7 to 8 upgrade? That's what you mean?
I mean literally every single Windows version ever made. So one of the things they've really done well with this upgrade, with this version, is to make that upgrade workable. And not just workable, but actually work really well. And you can tell that Microsoft feels good about it because they're the ones supporting the upgrade, right? This isn't going through PC makers. It's going through Microsoft.
This is more like the smartphone model where the updates get pushed out to you right from the manufacturer. Actually, that's not really apt because many smartphones, you have to get it through the carrier and there's a lot of level. This is coming to you right from Microsoft.
This is how we wish it was like with
should be like
smartphones.
this.
It comes right from the maker, from the software maker in this case.
All right. Number 4, new features.
Yeah, so these are security features. This kind of stuff is usually not very sexy, but every version of Windows obviously has improved security. This version, though, some of the security features they're adding are actually really neat. I think the big one is Windows Hello. So if you have compatible hardware, it could be a fingerprint reader, an IR camera that can do a facial scan, or an iris scanner. You can log into your computer, in some cases, just by sitting right in front of it, which is literally instantaneous if you have a camera, or by just swiping your finger. And it augments that system that's already in place with passwords and multi-factor authentication, PIN sign-in that we started having with Windows 8. And it works with that stuff just to make that sign-in process easier. But it's not just sign-in, it's also doing things like buying apps or going forward to websites that have passwords that you can associate with your Microsoft account.
Proving
and
that
so it's kind of a nice holistic system.
Yep. So when you buy stuff to prove that it's you, very much like the Apple.
Yeah, I love the fingerprint reader on iPhone and iPad because it's just very simple. I don't have to enter a password.
You know how security is, right? Passwords are awful.
Yeah.
PINs are better, but if you've ever used an iPhone, that Touch ID thing that they have is wonderful. Fingerprints are great, but what's better than just sitting down in front of your computer? It's mission impossible. It looks at you, says you're you, and you're in.
By the way, I noticed when I started using the Windows 10 beta that unlike Windows 8, it asks me for a PIN right at the beginning. I like to use a PIN to log in. I don't want it because I want to have a long, difficult to type password for my Microsoft account. So right at the beginning now they ask for a PIN, and so you don't have to go through that process.
And I bet you have the same PIN as I do, which is 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah. Well, it's easy to remember.
Admit.
Yeah.
Nobody would ever guess that. Yeah.
It's like the combo of my luggage.
Did every version, I think this is the case, did every version of Windows prior to Windows 8 have a start menu? Seems like they did, right?
No, well, the start menu debuted with Windows 95.
95. Okay,
Yeah.
Windows 3 did not have a start menu. All right, fine.
Right.
So from 95 on, but in 8 they took out the start menu to the horror.
Drove me crazy.
It did.
Yeah.
Well, if you're used
actually,
to clicking there,
That's right.
I don't mind that they went full screen for touch and all that stuff. I kind of get it. But really the big sin there was they didn't allow you to go back to the old way of doing things, which is something they had never done before.
Right.
So even in Windows 95, if you didn't like the start menu, you could go back to Program Manager.
Yeah.
Windows XP, if you didn't like the new start menu they had at the time, you could go back to the Windows 2000 version. So there's a real hard stop there, and that was kind of tough for people.
So item 5, start menu is back.
Yeah.
It's a hybrid start menu. I can show you here on this machine. It's both kind of a text-based start menu on the left, and on the right you still get the tiles sort of reduced. So, but what happens, and I don't know if we know the answer, as you add stuff, does that tile thing keep going off to the right-hand side, or?
No, it's actually going to go down. The tiles will go down. I mean, you
so
could
they'll
add to the
scroll
right,
down.
and that will expand it in either direction. But you can scroll through the list. So if the list of tiles is bigger than what you can see, you can scroll through
And
it
as
too.
power users have said again and again, and I presume this is still true, the easiest way to do this is to hit Windows key and start typing, and you'll find the thing that you're looking for right away,
Yeah,
right?
and that's worked the same for, I don't remember when that started. I want to say probably Windows Vista, but Start Search has always worked the same since they've implemented it. Even in Windows 8, you could just hit the start button and start typing.
And of course you can ask Cortana.
Right.
She'll go, huh? What else in desktop management? Item 6.
So, when Microsoft kind of got lost in the weeds with, Windows 8 and touch first and mobile devices and 2-in-1s and all that kind of stuff, I think a lot of people that were not stuck, but were on Windows 7, literally hundreds of millions of them, felt a little out of touch with what was going on because they use a traditional computer with a keyboard and a mouse and a desktop environment and floating windows and all that kind of stuff. And what about us? And so I think one of the things that's cool about Windows 10 is they're starting to add more features for those people. So Task View is kind of a neat alternative to Alt-Tab. There's some tiny percentage of people that actually even use that keyboard combination. So now they've put a button right on the taskbar that helps you manage the windows and applications you're running. There are features like Snap Assist. So they added, actually Snap debuted back in Windows 7, and there was a Windows 8 version of Snap. But with Snap Assist, when you snap something to a side of the screen, it shows you your other windows so you can, if you want to, choose another window to snap alongside it, which is a neat thing because in Windows 8, people would get lost. They would snap something and then say, well, how do I get something over here now? There's this big empty space. And they finally added formal support for virtual desktops, which is technology that's actually been in Windows for a long time, but there's just never really been a UI right in Windows. And so now it's possible.
I love virtual desktops. That's a great way to organize your work. You can have a desktop with different apps open and jump back and forth. And of course, here's the great news. The Charms bar is nowhere to be found.
I should have added that one. There is no Charms.
There is no charm. But there is now this new notification system which you could program, and it really is great. I really enjoy this. And that's
and a lot of the stuff that was in Charms is available right there. And the way you bring that thing up is very similar.
It's discoverable, though. I can actually click at a icon, which makes it a little bit easier to find. How about Edge? We've gotten rid of Internet Explorer, but isn't Edge just a renamed Internet Explorer? How is it different?
No, not exactly. I mean, the application itself is much simpler than Internet Explorer. The browser engine and the rendering engine and all that stuff is based on what they did with IE. Obviously, they didn't start over from scratch, but has been, all the legacy code has been removed. It's now only, modern web standards and all that kind of stuff. And so what we see is a browser that has proven to be faster than Chrome or Firefox or whatever other browser and benchmarks, but more to the point for users, I think, kind of a nice browsing experience. Kind of works the way you expect it to. It's very safe. It works with all the security technologies that Microsoft built into Windows 10. It's got some really neat and kind of unique features. If you have a pen-based system like a Surface, you can scribble notes on top of web pages and share that with others, or just save it for yourself.
Can I do that with touch as well, or do I have to have a pen?
Yeah, I bet you can. I haven't tried
If I
that.
can figure it out,
in fact, I
I'm
bet you
sure
probably
would do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet you probably
I
could.
notice our page does not render properly in it, so we'll have to work on that.
But that leads me into the final point about the browser is, Edge is one of those things that is coming in kind of hot. If you are used to Internet Explorer or Chrome and expecting certain features, every once in a while you run into something that's not there. And so over the rest of this year, and I think beyond that as well, they're going to be improving Edge quite a bit. And one of the things they're going to be adding, I think in October, is support for add-ins. And in fact, it will support Chrome add-ins. And so if you have a Chrome plugin or add-in, or whatever they call it in Chrome that you like, you can add it to Edge.
Now, I don't know if this is a beta thing or not, but I still have Internet Explorer on my computer.
Yes, and you will.
That's confusing.
They hide it, right? So it's not pinned to your taskbar. I don't believe it actually even appears in the all apps list.
No, I had to type Internet Explorer.
You had to type, yeah. So if you know to look for it, you can find it. But they do what they can to hide it. It's really just there for legacy purposes, mostly for businesses that need it for compatibility.
A lot of businesses use Internet Explorer. In fact, look what happens. The start page on Internet Explorer reminds you should be using Edge. What are you, nuts?
This thing we made is terrible. Please do not use it.
Please stop. Stop using Internet Explorer. But no, they have to put that in. That's one of the things Microsoft's always done, and I think does well, which is preserve compatibility for previous versions and legacy.
It freaks users out if you don't do that.
Yeah.
Edge is going to freak a lot of people out, and there's no reason to be freaked out. But
do you feel like, Paul, that they have, in fact, kept compatibility in Windows 10 for older software and hardware?
Oh, they absolutely have. Yeah. Yep.
What's Continuum? You mentioned that. This is like tablet plus, I don't understand.
Yeah, so Windows 10, obviously there's a normal desktop mode, it's just normal, and then it supports a tablet mode. So if you have a mini tablet and it comes with Windows 10, it will run in tablet mode. And in tablet mode, everything is full screen. It works like Windows 8 did with modern apps and so forth. You can manually switch between normal and tablet modes if you want through the Action Center, through a quick action tile. But if you have a 2-in-1 that supports a special kind of input-output chip, which is most of them, by the way, it will support automatic tablet mode, and that's what Continuum is essentially. It's the ability to, say with a Surface, you have a Surface tablet, you unplug the keyboard, you unclick it, it goes into tablet mode automatically. That's Continuum. And when you plug the keyboard back in, you're back into normal mode. It exits tablet mode for you.
This is kind of, Microsoft wanted to do this hybrid tablet desktop in Windows 8, but this makes it a little bit more rational, where you actually say, oh no, I want to be in tablet mode. I want to be in desktop mode.
Exactly. If you have a Surface tablet in particular, any 2-in-1, and you unclip the keyboard, you are, for all intents and purposes, almost certainly meaning to go do something with touch.
Right.
And in that type of scenario, it makes sense for this thing to go into a mode that works better with touch. And that's what they're doing.
Incidentally, you're probably noting, and I know people in the chat room are, that I'm using a pretty old build of the Windows 10 preview. I'm using 130. The current build, if you are in the Windows Insider program, is 240, and that is in fact the final, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So is there a big difference between 130 and 240, or 166 and 240?
Oof. No, not really. I mean, honestly, I think the biggest changes you're going to see are in the apps, and you can get those apps, I'm sure, on the older builds too. So,
Right.
the apps are updated all the time. The core functionality, I think, was locked down a month or two ago.
Here's the thing that Microsoft, in fact, Satya Nadella even used the phrase "one Windows," which scared the hell out of everybody. But this is one of the things that is untested but could be huge for Windows 10, the idea that one app can run on everything, Xbox, Windows Phone, and desktop and tablet. They call those
Right.
universal apps.
Yeah, and this is actually one of the cooler things about Windows 10. The funny thing is they really did the legwork for this in Windows 8. It's just that those apps were, first of all, Windows only, Windows 8 only. They only ran full screen, and so they were kind of not very interesting to a lot of people that used Windows, as most people do, with a keyboard and a mouse and so forth. And so in Windows 10, they've expanded that platform, to, like you said, to include the console, to include phone, to include Surface Hub, to include HoloLens, and there'll be other devices in the future. So it's possible for developers to write an app that runs across all of those platforms. And they've made them run more consistently with other applications on Windows. And so if you're using Windows 10, those applications that you might have shunned before because they were just full screen now look and work like normal applications. So I think this is actually, it's more than what they needed to do, but they've certainly done enough, I think, to put this platform over the top finally.
When do we get Windows Phone 10 or Xbox One 10? When is that going to happen?
Yeah, both of those are going to happen in the fall. And so
Really?
probably September, October, code final, and then in market, probably October, November.
So my understanding is that by doing this, I could write a Twit app that would run on, in fact, I think Dmitry Lialin, who wrote the Twit app for Windows Phone, is doing this, that would run on desktop, tablet, phone, and Xbox One. Is that the case?
Yeah, and
Wow.
one of the neat things about universal apps is that you can design them, and in fact, they're inherently meant to be this way, so that they scale according to
Nice.
not just the screen size, but the orientation, the pixel density, and then the input types that you see: touch, keyboard, mouse, Connect, Cortana, whatever you may have. So, lots of neat capabilities there.
This is, obviously this is Microsoft's way of getting developers to write software for their less desirable platforms, particularly Windows Phone.
Microsoft doesn't have less desirable
what am I
platforms, Leo.
thinking?
I don't know what that means.
But no, I think it's great. I'm very excited about it.
Sure.
Finally, we showed the slide. DirectX 12 is coming. Xbox
Yeah.
One's game streaming to Windows desktop is coming.
Yeah.
This is really going to be a universe.
And I think this one Windows idea
this.
is sort of what makes some of this happen.
Right.
As the core of Xbox One turns into the same core as we see in Windows 10, these kind of integration features become possible. The other night, I was sitting out on the couch watching TV with a Surface Pro 3, and I attached an Xbox One controller, and I played Call of Duty Ghosts off of my Xbox One that's in my office.
Nice.
And the funny thing about it is, I sit here, you can't see it because it's next to me, but, I've got a big screen on my computer, but next to me is my Xbox One. And I have Bose speakers, and it's kind of what I think is a nice setup. But then playing it on my Surface Pro 3, the sound was actually quite a bit better. I noticed there were things
Really?
going on.
Oh, that's
I was really kind of
What about latency?
surprised and disappointed
What
at the
about
same time.
lag? I mean, you're playing the game over the network. Is that an issue?
Yeah, so it's a little laggy over Wi-Fi, which is how I did it that time. It actually gets better as you go. It's a little bit like video streaming, where it kind of picks up steam almost. If you can do it with a wire, it's actually quite a bit better. And not that it makes sense for me to do this, but I did test it here on my desktop, and actually that experience was quite good.
So you're recommending people upgrade right away?
Yeah, I mean, I only gave you 10 items. I mean, the truth is there's a bunch of stuff that I didn't talk about: Cortana, Action Center, notifications, and all that. I mean, there's a lot going on. I guess the question isn't so much should you upgrade, because I think most users, not all users, should, but it's more a matter of timing. When should people upgrade? There are hundreds and hundreds of millions of people that could potentially upgrade for free during this first year. I'd let some of those guys go first, just to see how it goes. I mentioned up front, it's a much more reliable and easier upgrade, but it's still potential for silliness and compatibility issues and all that. And Microsoft, to their credit, is doing a pretty good job of slipstreaming this thing out over time. So July 29th, some people will get it. July 30th, more people, and they'll add people as time goes on. So I think for, the techie type people, they're going to want to upgrade right away. They're probably on the insider program. For the general audience, I would give it at least a month just to see how things shake out.
So even if you accepted the invitation, you'll get the bits, but you don't have to do it right away.
You don't have to do it right away. You don't have to do it, period. If you
There's
don't
also a rollback, I noticed. So you can go back to Windows 8.1. And that's
for 30
still right.
days. For 30 days.
30 days.
Yeah, because that takes, well, think about it. It takes up disk space, right?
Yeah, they're storing it on there,
and depending on the type of system you have, that could be particularly onerous. So they give you some time. You can try it, make sure it works, make sure everything's the way you want it, and you'll eventually get a little prompt, hey, this is going to happen. You sure, you're where you want to be, and it's all good.
Tune in Wednesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1800 UTC. It's Windows Weekly. We're going to have our big Windows 10 install party. And during the show, we're upgrading every computer in the studio to Windows 10. It's going to be amazing.
What could go wrong? I think we could call the episode, What Could Go Wrong?
There's actually a huge amount of unknown stuff that will become known, I think, on Wednesday and in the days following. We'll talk about that on Windows Weekly on Wednesday. Thank you, Paul, for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. It's good to see you.
Paul Thurrott, Windows Weekly. Thurrott.com is the place to go, THURROTT.com. He will have this all written up, everything you need to know. In fact, this mostly is on the site already.
So many businesses take their time in upgrading this stuff. When do you think most businesses will go to 10?
Well, and that's one of the reasons Microsoft is pushing Windows 10 is because businesses did not go to Windows 8.
Right.
They stayed with Windows 7.
I did.
Yeah, and I don't blame them. So I'm surprised. I thought you...
I'm 100% Mac, but there are, even if you're 100% Mac, there are a couple of things that you need to do. I do a lot of astronomy imaging and stuff like that.
And that
all the
software's
software. Exactly. You can get that. I know the chat room will say, yes, there's this, this, and this that you can use on Mac. But most of it is on PC. So I got to keep 7.
Yeah, and for gaming, PCs are still the king of the hill. I mean, they're really the way you want to go. Yeah. I think businesses will defer it as they have with 8, not merely because of questions of quality or compatibility, but mostly because of training. You got to teach, and this is so different from Windows 7. You got to teach your staff how to use it. That's not inexpensive.
The big motivation is they don't want to get fired. The person who's in charge of,
that's right.
Okay, the person who's in charge of moving the company to a new version of Windows.
Always going to be conservative.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You don't want to be the guy who stepped up and said, no, we got to go to 10. However, I do think this is an important upgrade. I think Microsoft is hugely committed behind them and giving it away. These are the crown jewels. To give away the crown jewels.
They have to.
That means Microsoft saying, we're all in. We want everybody to go to Windows 10. And I think ultimately there'll be a real advantage for businesses to do that. So businesses, I think, are thinking about it much more so than they were about Windows 8.
If they give us a stable platform and it makes sense, then that's great.
Should point out, businesses, it's not free for you.
Oh, it's not?
No.
Oh, okay.
Well, I guess it would be if they just had bought onesie-twosie Windows 8 licenses or Windows 7 licenses. But if you have an enterprise agreement, you're going to still be paying for the Windows 10 upgrade. Lots of fun. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Paul Thurrott. And I'm surprised to hear you use Windows. I didn't know you were an astronomer, for instance. That's interesting.
Big time. I'm total geek. You see this?
Yeah?
I have one of those.
Are you a ham as well?
Too. Yeah.
Is there any hobby?
Do you want to see my geek card?
You're copying
I have it in
me.
Yeah, I know. You are too. Yeah.
I'm copying you, except I don't have the telescope yet. Where would I go get one of those?
California has some great telescope companies. We'll talk.
We should. We'll talk. It's time, ladies and gentlemen, to take a call. Time to Help Me! Our Help Me caller is on the line. George. Hey, George.
Hey, Leo.
Where are you calling from today?
I'm calling from West Virginia today.
All right. Are you? I'm looking at the cabinet behind you. Whoa! And so is the camera apparently. Are you a ham? What do you do? What kind of stuff are you into there?
Modding, hacking, taking stuff apart, reprogramming it.
Cool.
Fun stuff. Like my favorite latest stuff is software-defined radio. I mean, I love it.
Yes, sir.
$20.
We like a guy like you.
You are a ham then. Do you have a ham license?
Not yet. I'm wanting to get one though.
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of stuff online and
even modern radios. This is an incredible ICOM, like a very fancy ICOM radio. I think it's the 7000. That's basically a software-defined radio, even though it looks like hardware and there's a lot of knobs and buttons.
Yes.
When they came to upgrade it, they put software modules in
Yeah.
it. Even today, even the hardware radios are software.
The FCC, a long time ago, and you probably know this, about 10 years ago, they said, ham community, go to software-defined radios. And that's where all the manufacturers are headed.
Makes sense. Why not? Yeah. So what can we do for you today, George?
Well, about a month or two ago, I decided to become a beta tester for Windows 10. And instead of upgrading like Windows 7 to Windows 10, I wanted to install it on a fresh hard drive and start from there. So once I did that, I wanted to have access to all my old data and files like that. And when I went to plug in my hard drive, there was a dual boot issue. Like, if I had my BIOS in the old BIOS, I could boot from Windows 7, but if I put it in the UEFI, then I could boot from Windows 10.
Oh, that's interesting.
So I decided to take a Windows DVD to USB and put my ISO on a thumb drive and try to install it that way, but it wanted me to delete all the partitions before I could even try to reinstall. So now I just kind of hot swap back and forth. So I was wondering, is there a better way to do that?
You know, it's
or is there
funny.
any new
I'm
programs
surprised
for
you're having
GPT?
these issues. Paul, I asked Paul before the show because he couldn't stick around. And I said, can you stick around and help George? He said, I got to go. And I explained what you were doing, probably not completely. He said, you know, it's pretty much like dual booting any version of Windows. It is true that modern machines are using not BIOS anymore. They're using the more secure, more compatible, or more capable UEFI boot. And that the master boot record, remember how we used to do Windows? It was a master boot record. Now they use something, hey, who's that?
That's my son in the background.
Now they use the GUID, G-U-I-D partition table, or GPT. And the reason is, you know, master boot record, which isn't very big, used to hold pointers for all the sectors on the drive. Well, as drives got bigger and bigger, you just couldn't do that.
Space increases,
Yeah.
right.
So GPT is a much more flexible system and allows virtual disks, all sorts of things. But if you look, it seems like the dual boot situation is very similar to how it used to be. You have Windows 7, you install Windows 8. When you get to the installer point where it says, do you want to upgrade 7? You say, no, I want to install a new copy of Windows 8. And it should all work. So did you not do it that way?
No, I installed 10 separately and then just added in my old hard drive.
Yeah,
put it on a
do
brand
it.
new system.
You should do it like we used to do it. Yeah, just like we used to. You don't actually need to do anything. This is what happens when you overthink it. Oh, no, it's now UEFI, it's now GPT, it's got to be all different. Turns out Microsoft kind of handles it all under the hood, and it should be able to dual boot no problem. And I think that's probably, for a lot of people, the right way to go. I've been running Windows 10 and VM. Because I was, you know,
I never even thought about that.
Yeah, that's another way, and of course you can do that for free. You know, VMware has a free player. There's a what is it called? OneBox. That's the virtual machine from Oracle. And then you could go out and buy a professional VM.
Is there anything you recommend for editing the GPT partitions themselves? Because I know you can't use Fdisk anymore or anything like that. Okay, I'm sorry.
That's a good question. I do not know.
No. So I just want to make sure.
That makes me very nervous. At this point, I would use the Microsoft tools only. You know, I'd use the disk management system, and I wouldn't go much farther than that. Let's wait till Windows 10 has been out for a few months, and I'm sure there will be tools to do all of that stuff.
Can you still do a dual boot on your existing system? Can you put 10 on there?
Yeah.
VirtualBox,
I can
not
still do it.
OneBox. I
I
always
would try
call it
that.
OneBox. I don't know why.
I would try that.
VirtualBox. Hey, it's great to talk to you, George. It looks like you're building
was an honor being on the show.
a mini Twit studio behind you there. I like that. It looks good.
It's my hackerspace.
Yeah, I love
you
it.
gotta have a place to put your stuff.
And where'd
gotta have
that
extra
owl
resources.
come from? I love your owl.
It's probably like 30 years old. It just
nice.
reminds me to have a thirst for knowledge, you know. And
Love
keep
it.
going. So,
Love it. George, great to talk to you. Thanks for joining us.
People who make
Have a
stuff
great
at
day,
home
you
and do
guys.
that stuff, people who tinker, are the people that come up with amazing things
Are
later
you a
on in store
tinkerer? You
business.
feel like you might be a tinkerer.
I might be.
Do you have a garage?
I might have.
Woodworking? Do you have all that stuff? Chisels?
No, I don't
planes?
do woodworking, but I've always done electronics.
Yeah, that's
And
really
you know,
cool.
Radio Shack was a big part of those guys.
know.
Where do they go now? I guess they go to the web. You buy stuff on the web.
You know, we have, in fact, I should take you down there. Down here in Marin, there's a place called, I think it's Electronics First. It's better than Radio Shack. It's
Really?
a store with bin after bin of components and all sorts of stuff.
Didn't
It's so
Woz
much
say
fun.
that that's actually what helped him to
Sure.
to be able to do everything?
He was at
Radio Shack?
HP, and at HP they had a closet.
And he was using
any
stuff.
employee could
Right.
walk into the closet, go, yeah, I think I'll take one of those 8088s. You got a Z80 in there? I'll take one of those. Maybe an 8502, a 6502. And he put together the first Apple I from components in that closet.
Mm-hmm.
Went back to HP, said, look what I made. Would you like to sell it? They said, no, there's no market for personal computers, but you know, have fun. You guys will have a great time. It's so great to have Jim Cutler here, the voice of Tech TV.
Well, I
the
haven't
voice
done
of
anything
Twit.
yet. I've just been standing here looking handsome.
I know, I didn't give you much chance to do anything on that one. We got some more to do.
Oh, we do.
We got a lot
We got
more.
some good stuff coming up. Wait till you meet Jeremy Coward. And anybody who lives in the Pacific Northwest,
Whoa! I'm scared. Are you
stick
scared?
around. I'm scared.
You know,
'cause
you live in Long Island, right?
Yeah, I do.
The only earthquake fall into the ocean.
The only earthquake that we felt, there was one in Washington D.C. and I felt it in my chair.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, my chair went back and forth up in New York,
Yeah.
and that was from down in D.C. But you'll feel this one if well, stick around.
We're going to talk about the Cascadia subduction zone.
Yes.
It's not a fault. Oh no, it's a zone, baby. But but first, you were mentioning Audible.com.
I have some picks, if that's okay.
I think you may. You know, on Monday we're going to interview Ernest Cline on triangulation. He's the guy who wrote. Look at this. This is a paper book. Who's reading paper books these days? He wrote Ready Player One. Will Wheaton narrates that on Audible.com. Brings that to life. His new book Armada is also on Audible.com. I'll be downloading that and listening to it before the interview. Audible is the best audiobook store. In fact, it's one of the, it's the audiobook store. It's like number 2. 185,000 books, bestsellers, fiction, nonfiction, history. Which do you listen to most, Jim? Are you a history buff or are you a fiction buff?
I listen to a lot of history. My wife and I both listen to a lot of stories about rock from like the
I do
the Wrecking
too.
Crew. Have you heard the Wrecking Crew?
No, I can't wait.
The Wrecking Crew. Highly
Who's that
recommend.
about?
It turns out that in the 60s and 70s, we all thought that bands played their own music. And everybody knows that the Monkees didn't.
Right.
But it turns out about
A lot of others
20 people did all of the music on all of the hit records.
These are the great
It's
studio
amazing.
musicians.
It's like the Byrds. They brought the Byrds in, and they let your friend Roger play,
Yeah.
Roger McGuinn.
Yeah.
But the other guys, they made them sit in the corner while they played the instruments, and they were furious. But it turns out that that's how records were made in the 60s and 70s.
So the book is called The Wrecking Crew.
The Wrecking Crew. Highly
I
recommend.
will read that. I read Keith Richards' book.
Yes.
Which was amazing.
His new album is terrific, by
Is
the
it
way.
really?
Yes.
I read Graham Nash's book.
Yep.
I read. I love those rock biographies.
Anything about what's the Dawn? What's the Valley? Laurel Canyon.
Oh yeah, that's where Joni Mitchell was. That's where
Yep.
Roger was. The Wrecking Crew. Kent Hartman. Now we're going to get you this book or one of the titles on Audible.com absolutely free. You'll be signing up for the Gold plan, but you don't pay anything for the first month. That's another Wrecking Crew. That one. There's Armada. See, this is a challenge. You got to pick one book.
Yeah.
Now, your 30 days are free. You cancel any time in that first 30 days. The book is yours to keep. You also get, by the way, we don't talk about this that often, but this is a great feature of the subscription, the daily digest for the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal. So you can be, what people look at. This is all about sitting in the car in traffic. You're listening to a great book. You're listening to news. But I don't commute anymore, and I still find it time to do Audible on the treadmill, on the rowing machine.
Yep.
This morning we were listening to, I think, a James Patterson novel as we worked out, Lisa and I, in the gym. When I walk the dog, do the dishes, Audible. Audiobooks are a great way to bring books back into your life.
Can I give you a
as
couple
person.
more from Audible?
Please.
Nelson DeMille, Radiant Angel.
Don't know that.
Really good. It's a story about what if a nuclear bomb, terrorists brought a nuclear bomb into Manhattan. And
Oh, yeah. You really want to
see
read
what
that?
happens. This is brand new, and it's real good.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking nothing good. But,
I'll give you a tech book, a good tech book.
Yeah.
Timothy Ferriss, not Tim Ferriss, but Professor Timothy Ferriss.
There's a different one?
Yes, there is. Wrote a great book called Seeing in the Dark. And if you look, you'll see it's very highly rated. It's anybody who's into astronomy in any way. This book is about the love of astronomy. People who, like the fellow from West Virginia who tinkers in his lab, people who bring telescopes out in the backyard and spend the whole night. All of a sudden, they love it so much that the dawn has come up. This book is filled with amazing stories of really cool people. And then
He's
one more.
distinct from Tim Ferriss because there's only one S. That's how you find.
I didn't notice
Seeing
that.
in the Dark, how backyard stargazers are probing deep space and guarding Earth from interplanetary peril. Pluto was discovered by an amateur astronomer in the 30s.
It's amazing that Pluto was a minor planet now discovered, but 9 years ago, I had hair. I just pointed that out.
Do you have a little heart carved on your tummy right down there? Have you seen the colorized pictures of Pluto?
I love
now?
it.
They're coming
but
out.
it's only 600 baht or something coming down.
I know. It's
It's
going
going
to
to
take
be
them
18 months until we get all the pictures.
Amazing. One more. Okay, one more.
Well, you don't have to.
No, I've got two, but I'll give you one more. Dick Cavett, Brief Encounters. Do
Love
you
that.
remember Dick Cavett?
I remember him. I know him very well.
He's an
I love
awesome
Dick
guy,
Cavett.
very
Yeah.
intelligent guy. Lots of little stories that he tells about behind-the-scenes things that happen in show business. He interviewed the who's who back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
of
Jimi
Hendrix,
interview
John
was
Lennon.
World famous. John
Yeah,
Lennon.
yeah.
Yeah, I loved it. And Dick reads it, I'm sure. Yeah, he's got
does.
that great voice. Love Dick Cavett. People probably don't remember much of him, but boy,
He's great.
is
So I got all
fabulous.
these from you because I started listening to Audible stuff because of...
Really?
Yeah, because of it.
Well, thank you. Audible.com. Oh, I haven't told you how to get the free book. This is the problem. When Audible listeners get together, it's like this. Well, and then have you heard this? Have you heard this? Audiblepodcast.com, audiblepodcast.com/NSS, new screensavers, to get your first book free. Audible.podcast.com/NSS. And we thank Audible so much for their support of the new screensavers. I got a little text short, and then we're going to talk earthquakes. But first, Brian Burnett, with which GoPro should you pick? Brian?
Hey, Brian Burnett, host of Know How, coming to you from the Know Hole. Here to give you a few tips on the different models of GoPros and some of the best practices using the mounts. So the GoPro has definitely been popularized by a lot of the most exciting videos to come out in the last few years, but there are different tiers of GoPro. This one I'm looking at here is the Hero 3. The most current one is the Hero 4, but this one still does really well with video. There's the three tiers. There's the Black Edition, which this is. That means it comes with a few more bells and whistles. Definitely comes with a higher price. The Silver Edition, which is for just about everyone. Also, most recently, GoPro introduced a brand new camera called the Hero 4 Session, which is half the size of a normal GoPro, and the case itself is actually waterproof. The downsides of this are the battery isn't removable, and it doesn't the only way to change some of the settings is with your cell phone, or if you have the GoPro remote. The Hero 4 Session also doesn't have as good video quality, so I'll probably be waiting until the next version to get this one. For most of my videos, I prefer to do 1080p at 60 frames because that makes things look a little smooth, and if I want to do slow-mo, that gives me the option for that. One of the mounts that I like the most and is pretty versatile is the suction cup mount. As long as you have a clean, relatively flat surface, you can attach this just about anywhere. And from my experience, I use it a lot on my motorcycle. So the gas tank is a perfect place to put it, along with maybe some of the lower fairings. As long as it's a clean surface, the suction cup stays on there really well. It's definitely been bounced around, and it can withstand wind up to pretty high speeds, which I can vouch for. So the suction cup's pretty versatile, and just remember to move it around a bit if you want to get some different shots and kind of mix up your video. The next mount that I really like to use is kind of a combination of some of the joints that they have and the clip mount matched with a sticky bottom. The adhesive that they use is really strong, so whatever you're sticking it to, be sure you want it to be there for a long time. I use this on my helmet, and I've also put it on the swing arm of my motorcycle, so it's kind of nice to use for hard to reach places or somewhere where you know you don't want the camera falling off, or you can't use the suction cup. And then the third mount that I like to use a lot is called the chesty, and rightfully so, because you just wear it on your chest. It's pretty easy to adjust, and the only downside with the chesty is that any vibration that you have going through your body is going to be transferred to the chesty. So in the end, I like recording at a higher frame rate, keeping the camera low to make things seem like they're going as fast as you perceive them in real life. So those have been some quick tips if you're interested in getting into using GoPros or action cameras in general, and some of the mounts. Thanks for watching.
That is our technical director, as well as the host of Know How, Brian Burnett. Boy, the images, Brian, were beautiful, and that's high frame rate, right?
Yeah, that's the 60 frames per second.
That's the key. It's so solid. And the color and everything. Boy, it makes me want to use, there he is. Makes me want to use my GoPro more. And that was a 3 that you were using for most
Yeah,
of
that's the Hero 3 Black Edition.
All right, very nice. That's the one I have. Hey, we all read, I think many of us anyway, in the New Yorker a couple of weeks ago, the article about the Cascadia subduction zone. This was a really fascinating article. New Yorker does so well about science, and in particular about an only recently discovered earthquake potential in the Pacific Northwest. Scared a lot of people. We thought we'd get an expert in here. Julian Lozos is hey, Lozos?
Yes.
Thank you, Julian. Postdoc at the U.S. Geological Survey and Stanford in seismology.
Yes.
In particularly simulating earthquakes.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. Funded by the National Science Foundation. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm really glad to be here and talk about this.
Everybody read the New Yorker article. Of course, you'd have to have a popular magazine to really get the word out on this. What do earthquake scientists think about it?
So there were a lot of kind of mixed feelings about this article. In terms of reaching out to the public and getting their attention about earthquakes, it was very good.
It did that.
It definitely, there are so many situations where it's hard to get the public's attention about earthquakes until there is one. And so this was good for that. In fact, also the San Andreas movie was pretty good for getting people's attention, even though it was a little bit egregious. But there's been a lot of sort of discussion among the earthquake science community about actually how to sort of clean up for some things that this article doesn't handle that well.
And Julian, I don't think that most people know what we're talking about. So let's tell them what the subduction zone is, the Cascadia subduction.
Is that a fault?
So basically it's a really big sucker fault. The reason it's described as a zone is it's a big complex thing that has many, many faults involved, but you could also really say San Andreas fault zone. But for simplicity, if you go back to your, I see you have your science year 9 up there. We have a video of what happens in a subduction zone. But to step back, just in plate tectonics, you can have tectonic plates interact in several ways, and I'm gonna.
So let me do what Catherine wrote in the article, and you tell me where she blew it. So she says essentially the United States is floating on one tectonic plate.
Most of it.
Most of it is anyway. And then there's a Pacific tectonic plate, right?
Yes.
And it's, I don't know how, but it got its edge in under there, right?
So that's a pretty normal thing to have happen. There's sort of several ways plates can interact. They can spread apart, like in the middle of the ocean. Yeah. They can slam into each other and make mountains, like in the Himalaya. So actually, that's
cool.
where the Nepal earthquake comes from.
Uh-huh.
In California, right here, the plates are, lift my hands up higher, moving side to side.
Okay. That's what the San Andreas fault's doing. That's that little rubbing there.
Yes,
okay.
But very often when you have two plates that are not the same weight or the same density slamming into each other, one will go under the other. Just so in the case of Cascadia, the North American plate is a continental plate. It's rock that is lighter and fluffier, if you will, than oceanic rock, which is harder and denser. And so that oceanic rock, we've got another diagram up there, is going to hit the softer rock and just go under it.
It just goes under it.
It just goes under it. It's denser, it's heavier, rather than crashing into each other equally, it just goes under.
What she said is that because it's going under, we've been going up a few hundred millimeters every year, or millimeter.
Yeah. You get uplift definitely along a subduction zone, and both in that diagram you see volcanoes. So all of the Cascade volcanoes, Mount St. Helens, Mount Rainier, all of those guys are related to this process as well, because the plate drags water down with it and helps melt the rock and makes volcanoes. But even aside from that, you're shoving something under something else, and it goes up a little bit.
No, we've been teasing since the beginning of the show that there's a really good reason to listen to this story, and we haven't told people why yet, what it means. So what happens when the bad thing happens?
So most of the time this is just sitting there, and it's locked together by friction. Most faults are not moving most of the time because friction, the same friction that keeps you...
pretty heavy.
Yeah, is holding things together.
Yeah.
But eventually, just plates are going to try to move, and all of the strain that builds up of just accumulating the plates trying to move and the friction on the fault saying, nuh-uh. Eventually, the strength of the fault just can't stand up to all of that accumulated attempt to slip, and it slips. Or in more layman's terms, you have an earthquake. Basically, when the fault slips, when the frictional strength of the fault is just overcome by the amount of strain building up on it, it breaks, and you get a just slip. That is the earthquake.
Does it have something to do with the land falling down all at once? With tremendous force, because that's what this article talked about.
That's what she implied.
So that was one of the things that was a little bit questionable. So there are kinds of faults where one side moves down relative to the other. That's exactly the opposite kind of fault from what Cascadia is. That's where you have one side moving up.
Okay.
Moving under and
so what's going to happen when we get a slip on the Cascadia subduction?
So a slip will be, well, in terms of this article, a slip will be an earthquake. There are actually sort of slower kinds of things that happen regularly, but that's not what we're concerned about
Now,
here.
she wrote that it will be a stronger earthquake than, say, the San Andreas is even capable of.
That is very true, yeah.
She was
A
talking about a
9.0.
9.0. Yeah.
So the Cascadia subduction zone is about the same size as the part of Japan that had the earthquake in 2011. So
and that was a 9, wasn't
That
it?
was a 9. That Tohoku earthquake off northeast Japan is about sort of the kind of size you could expect from Cascadia. And the reason that it's so much bigger than any San Andreas earthquake is two things. First of all, it's just a longer fault. The size of the earthquake is very much related to how much of the fault slips and how much it slips. So like slipping 5 meters over 500 miles is going to be a bigger earthquake than slipping 2 meters over 500 miles or slipping 5 meters over 200 miles.
So the potential here is pretty serious.
Yeah, it's much longer and it's also much deeper.
But it's not just the earthquake, because as we know in Japan, after the earthquake, and the earthquake went on for many minutes.
4 minutes.
Then there was a tsunami.
Yeah, so the really big subduction zone earthquakes can make tsunamis, but I would like to make one step backwards, is that faults don't always break all at once. So this is one thing that this article really doesn't cover, is that just because any earthquake on Cascadia doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the whole thing.
You might get little tiny ones.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
there
what's
are a lot
happening
of,
on San Andreas. We just had a 4.0 today.
Well, that was the Hayward.
Oh, so the Hayward.
Yeah,
But similarly,
yeah.
it's letting off steam bit by bit, right?
Yeah, so basically, small earthquakes mean that faults are active. The patches of fault that slip are just related to how ready that part is at any time. So Cascadia could have certainly a 9, but it could have an 8, which would still be bad. It could have a 7. But basically, yeah.
Let me tell you what made this article grab everybody's attention, and let me know what part is wrong, because maybe part of it is wrong, because we've all been talking about this. When earthquakes happen, they don't happen every few years in some places. They can go centuries without happening, right? So you move into an area, you explore the Northwest, you send Lewis and Clark out to the Northwest, and they say, man, this is beautiful, you gotta build a city here. You gotta bring people. So they do, and decade after decade, nothing happens. You have no idea that the earthquake is coming. Well, scientists evidently put together somehow that one of these 9.0s happened off the coast of, was it off the coast of Washington, and in 1700. And they were able to scientifically figure out to the hour when the tsunami hit Japan and when the tsunami came west and hit
Because of
the West
historic
Coast.
records in Japan.
I mean, it's
and
incredible.
From the Native Americans living in that area in 1700.
They said, through
fascinating?
Native American lore, they said that an entire group of people were wiped out when their land
Because they were on an
dropped.
island.
Yeah, exactly.
But Julian, is it true that this is a new discovery, that we didn't know about this?
So that is not true.
Okay.
So we've actually known about Cascadia in just the fact that it exists for quite some time. For one, you have this big line of active volcanoes that's running up
The Ring of
core.
Fire. We're on the Ring of Fire. That's part of it,
but
right?
particularly in Oregon and Washington, there are so many active volcanoes that are
John
just
St. Helens.
the, archetypal subduction zone volcanoes. But also there was imaging of just the shape of the plate boundary. There was a lot of evidence that something was there. But in terms of really, it's the kind of earthquake it was capable of. The doors got blown open by exactly the story you're talking about with the 1700 event, which I think is one of the coolest stories of scientific detective work you can get.
And that's how you know he's a seismologist.
It's really, really
kids.
cool. I mean, the idea that basically people went, so Japan, who had ridiculously meticulous records about exact times and exact dates and exact amounts of inundation, are going, so we had this happen and nothing shook, so what gives? Because Japan, I mean, there's a reason the word tsunami is, our word around the world for this is a Japanese word. They have a lot of them. They have a lot of earthquakes. And they didn't feel an earthquake, and everyone was like, eh? And so you have that on one side of the ocean, and then you have the Native American records on the other side who have really detailed stories about how devastated they were, but they're not keeping track of time on any, Western calendar that can be necessarily correlated to the Japanese records. And so
and we're talking 1700, and they put this all together. It's amazing.
Well, they put this all together in the 80s, but just that story of, okay, you've got a bunch of tribes over here saying, yeah, we got screwed over by this thing. You've got Japan with extremely meticulous records, and you have this subduction zone with no documented events, and they started looking for things. They started looking for, one of the big pieces of evidence was looking at trees that died. And so when you have a subduction zone earthquake, some part of the land will rise up, but then some of it also gets stretched and sinks down, and so things that were above ground are not anymore. This was a huge problem in Sumatra in 2010. Or yeah, there's a picture.
So core samples will show you,
yeah.
Look at that.
Is that an Alaska picture, 64?
So one of the things that the article said is that they estimated that these massive events happened on the average of every 243 years. That sounds like something.
That is another one of the things that actually a lot of the earthquake science community has gone, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the calculation of recurrence intervals, of just figuring out what is the average amount of time between big suckers, or even between any earthquakes, but usually when we're doing a recurrence interval calculation, it's between some sort of
massive
big event and big event. For the northern San Andreas, we would be talking about between 1906 style events, not necessarily between Loma Prieta style events.
Oh, really? Even Loma Prieta isn't that big a deal.
So in terms of energy release on a fault, a 6.9 is a big deal for civilization, but not
for a fault.
Oh, jeez.
Because I remember the Loma Prieta.
Yeah,
so should we be worried that we're overdue or that one is imminent?
It's not necessarily. So if you ask a lot of other people working on Cascadia, and scientists have been working on the Cascadia subduction zone really quite a lot for sort of since the 1700 story got blown open, and even since before then. But it's sort of one of those really sexy seismology topics almost, where like a lot of people are working on Cascadia. It's well instrumented. There's a lot of interesting things going on, and there's this huge risk element. And so a lot of people are working on Cascadia. But in terms of that recurrence interval, as I was saying, some people use the tree ring stuff. Chris Goldfinger's work is very heavily based on turbidites, which are basically huge offshore landslides. And the way that works is basically by getting a core out of one of those and trying to figure out how old through dating some sort of material in there. There's a good picture.
So this is difficult to say.
Well, that's not a turbidite, but that's.
It's difficult to say how soon. Actually, this is an example of the Native American civilization that was subsumed. There's their fire pits, and as you see, there's a little bit of land on top of that.
So this kind of thing is a little bit more reliable than the turbidites, because you really have a thickness of sand that you can measure, and it needs a certain once you get that tsunami on land and evidence of how far something went onto the land, it gives you more evidence about the size than just looking in the water.
Show the jury where the Cascadian subduction zone is. Can you point out where is at risk?
So it basically goes from offshore,
by the way,
about Humboldt.
just so you know, we're right here. Okay, go ahead.
So if you go off of the sort of tip of Humboldt County, off of Eureka, and it goes off the page, sort of through part of Vancouver Island.
And so Portland, Seattle, Victoria, Vancouver, all of that would be in the subduction
They would be affected
zone.
by this earthquake.
And it would be, if it were a 9.0, devastating.
So that's another thing about this article. The recurrence interval is probably longer than 245 years.
Thank God.
Most people that are working with more kinds of data think it's closer to 500 years.
Oh, good.
And the level of devastation in there is certainly was played up a little, I think. Some comparable things to look at would be like the 2010 earthquake off of Chile, an 8.8.
Pretty big one.
Or even Japan, even Tohoku in 2011. The vast majority of that damage was from the tsunami. The earthquake itself actually did very little in terms of the overall issue. And
well, that's a relief. So just worry about the tsunami.
So, I mean, the tsunami is scarier. I mean, the earthquake, I wouldn't want to be in I wouldn't want to be in, say, the old brick building Pearl District part of Portland during a magnitude 9. Don't get me wrong. That's old brick. That's not good construction. But like one of the things that this article mentions is that buildings are not built for a 9.
No, they're on rollers now, though. They're really designed to handle the motion.
Are they in the Pacific Northwest?
Buildings in the United States in general are built to good codes, and there is some awareness of has been awareness of earthquakes in the Pacific Northwest, even if not like magnitude 9 awareness for a while. So the building codes, the newer buildings are pretty good, and so I mean there will definitely be some buildings knocked down. I mean, in a magnitude 9, that's what you would expect. But the level of like that thing about everything west of the 5. I mean, again, there's going to be localized pockets of, bad construction or things on soft soil, but it's not going to be like the entire thing is flattened.
How about the tsunami? How bad is that gonna be?
The tsunami, so there's another thing, again, if you look at Chile in 2010 or Japan in 2011 to compare it to, the coastal areas will be devastated. I mean, there's really no way around that, but the distance inland that this article suggests is a bit overblown.
So how far?
So with Japan, so it went in, again, I'm now not remembering if we're doing miles or kilometers here, but let's say miles.
Okay.
Let's say it went in 3 miles.
Yeah.
Instead of 3 kilometers. Still, that's not everything west of the 5.
And our viewer who's 150 miles inland, he's probably going to be
He's going to be okay. He's going to feel that earthquake. I mean, the odds of, we would probably feel that earthquake down here.
Right.
But the tsunami, also in Japan, it followed river channels up further. So there would be, things that are along a river might, here's a picture of Japan.
We all saw the video, that just terrifying video of the surge.
Coming up a river into Miyagi Prefecture.
Yeah.
And this area is still completely devastated, by the way. I got to go to Tohoku last fall, and we visited some areas where they've finally mostly finished picking up the piles of stuff, but haven't even had yet time to start rebuilding it. But off of Cascadia, places like Portland and Seattle are far enough inland that they'd probably notice some rise in the sound or in the river. But
they're not going to be washed
this level
away.
is, this is still much closer to the coast than the Pacific coast than Seattle is or Portland is.
We shouldn't abandon our earthquake preparedness. We should still consider all of this.
Absolutely.
But it's not time to panic.
No, basically,
or move out of Seattle.
I would say it's never time to panic.
Okay.
Panic is something like whenever there's an earthquake and then some article gets into like, you're all going to die. and the earth science community is just like, no. The thing is not to be fatalistic and go, I'm going to die, what can I do? One thing I always like to do on Twitter whenever there's an earthquake is say, don't use this as an opportunity to panic and think about that recurrence interval and wonder when I'm going to die. Use it as an excuse to check your earthquake kit. Use it as an excuse to go, do I have enough water for 3 days?
Right.
Do I have a plan to meet with my family? Do I have a way to keep my pets safe? Do I have a plan of where to go if, X and such freeway is gone?
What do seismologists like you do? Do you have all of that stuff?
For kits?
Yeah, are you ready?
I mean, I have a pretty good kit. I think there's some stuff I could probably improve. Like they recommend changing the water in it every once in a while. But like my kit lives in my car because I live in a tiny studio apartment in San Francisco.
You would run out and get in the car.
Well, no, I wouldn't run out and get in the car. What you should do when they're shaking is you should drop, cover, and hold on. You should get under something sturdy and hold on. Because if you don't hold on, then the thing might shake away from you. And
so hold on to this table. Get under it.
Because if you don't hold on, it might.
How about
shake
doorways?
Away. Doorways are a myth.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Somebody told me, don't get under the doorway.
Don't get under the doorway. One of the most common small injuries in an earthquake.
Stop it!
Oh, come on, dude.
Stop it! You're making me nervous
Now
here.
you're making us look bad by the fact we're not getting under the
Julian
table.
Lozos, he is a postdoc at the U.S. Geological Survey in Stanford, an expert in the physics of earthquakes and seismology and simulation. His work is funded by the National Science Foundation. Julian, thanks for coming by.
Thank you for having me. I hope I helped clarify some stuff.
You did.
I hope that I gave some of you in the Pacific Northwest a little bit more peace of mind.
Breathing room. Yeah.
Did you see in Alaska all the stuff's been floating across from Japan and they're finally getting government for years, and they're finally getting government funding to pick it up and bring it back to Japan. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have your dolly here. Would you like it back? He was on last week's show. Frederick Van Johnson, you know him, great photographer. He's got a tip to get the most out of your lens.
Hi there, my name is Frederick Van Johnson, the host of This Week in Photo. You can find us at thisweekinphoto.com. This tip is about your gear. Lots of photographers accumulate lots of lenses and camera bodies and flashes and all this other stuff, but they never really learned the stuff in detail. This tip is to pick one lens, one camera body, and learn it. Use it, live with it, sleep with it, know it as well as you can. Get to know its pluses, its minuses, its strengths, its weaknesses, and you'll be much better in the end. That's my tip.
Thank you, Frederick Van. You know, I actually took his advice to heart on our last vacation. One lens.
Oh, yeah.
The whole time.
Most photographers make that mistake in their life. They take every lens they have and you end up carrying a big, heavy thing. I take one lens.
I also noticed, I don't know if it's you or your wife, Dawn, you're both photographers, that you have that great think tank bag. It's like a canvas. It doesn't, I got it because it doesn't look like a camera bag. It's not, it doesn't scream.
It's here, right? Do you have it?
I love this bag. And it's got lots of little.
Do you have this one?
I do.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I don't know how we both have the same bag because it's kind of obscure.
Well, I buy anything you buy.
Did I publish that?
No, no, no.
No, I read an article. Somebody recommended it, and I looked at it, and I thought this is exactly what I need for the trip, because it's surreptitious.
There are,
but it's very practical.
Yeah, there are a ton of different bags. We probably don't have time for this, but this is it.
I agree.
And they make it in lots of different sizes, and it's just, it looks all right.
I have the same exact
Do you?
bag.
Yeah, it's awesome.
You know what I love? It has the Velcro silencers on it.
Yes. So if you're in a church or something,
you don't want to go.
You do this,
and then the Velcro is silent
because it drives people in court or in the. See, now I can open it.
It's
and it
quiet.
doesn't make any noise. Yeah.
Think tank makes this.
Do you have a little tripod like
Retrospective
this?
5. I do.
That's awesome.
Of course I do.
Yeah. Okay.
But you know what I used on? I did a time lapse on the boat on lock, and I used a Gorilla Pod and wrapped it around a railing. Those are great for that.
Time lapse, isn't the boat moving and everything? You can't get a steady shot.
But no, you do. You get a steady shot of the boat.
Oh,
so I put a little bit of the boat in
okay,
it, right?
Yeah, that's cool.
And then the water it's going up and down and like this. Here, what's this? Oh my God. Yeah, kind of like that. Only,
yeah, that's cool.
You know. Anyway, thank you, Frederick. And Jim Cutler is here. We're going to talk to one of our favorite photographers about getting your portraits done, like the best portraits ever. You're studying with him.
Let me introduce him to you.
Okay, not yet, because we got to do an ad.
Okay.
Then I will let you introduce Mr. Coward. But first, I want to introduce you, mobile developer, to Braintree Payments. You know about Braintree, I hope. Every mobile developer is working on a way to add a payments solution. Of course, now with freemium and all that, the ability to take payments is huge. And if you're Uber, that actually could be the differentiator between you and the local taxi cab company. Uber uses Braintree in their app. Braintree gives you the capability of taking Apple Pay or PayPal or credit cards. You can even take Bitcoin. You can even, this is the simplest, easiest way, Venmo, to add mobile payments. And when new mobile payment methods come out, hint, hint, it will be there automatically. Superior fraud protection, customer service. You get fast payouts, and your customers get a seamless, magical experience. And that is so important to success, frankly, as an app. With excellent customer service, simple integration, Braintree gets you ready to receive payments quickly, and their continuous support and fast payouts mean you'll be prepared as your company grows from your first dollar to your billionth. It's the choice of unicorns everywhere. Braintree. Here's the deal. Go to BraintreePayments.com/NSS. They've got a sandbox. You can try out their V.0 SDK. If you like it, talk to them. It's just a few lines of code. It works in, it's a full stack solution. Works in every possible environment. It's used by Airbnb, Hotel Tonight, Living Social, Uber, and Lyft. Everybody uses this. And your first $50,000 in transactions will be fee-free if you go to BraintreePayments.com/NSS. We're big fans of Braintree, and we know that you will love them. Leo Laporte here. Jim Cutler is our guest host. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
You and Dawn, your lovely wife.
Yep, we're a team. We're a team, just like you and Lisa.
Yeah.
Can I introduce you to an amazing guy? He's on the line right now. Jeremy Coward.
Jeremy, are you there?
I'm here. How are y'all doing?
Oh, it's great to see you again, Jeremy. Actually,
yeah,
I feel like
absolutely.
I feel like, and I think our viewers will feel the same way. We kind of know Jeremy from his pictures.
No doubt.
You've seen him.
If you've bought any music in the past few years, you bought his album covers. He's a phenomenal. First of all, he's a phenomenal portrait artist on his own for just regular people. But he specializes in the music industry, and he's in California, he's in Los Angeles a lot. But Nashville is the hotbed of creativity. And the who's who of Nashville works with him. Plus, I like him so much, I paid to take courses from him. And, this is not, I'm not getting anything free here. So I want to talk about some of that. And I want to talk about what you're doing right now. What have you been up to recently, Jeremy, that would be interesting to these guys?
Well, I've been traveling a lot. I just shot an ad campaign in Miami last week. I've been working a lot on CU, as you know. I just adopted 2 children from Haiti, which is a big deal.
Congratulations.
So, yeah. Thank you.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
What is CU?
CU is short for C University, as in SEE. So C University, it's basically a massive video vault of videos, me teaching everything I know, basically. And so far I've made over 120 videos, I believe, on that website there.
Wow.
Yeah, so I've spent the last 9 months to a year just filming videos on everything you can imagine in regards to photography. Lightroom, Photoshop, posing, family work balance, color editing, raw processing, the whole deal. Literally everything I could think of.
I'm a tutorial maven. I mean, I'm constantly learning. You are probably too.
Oh, sure.
This takes it to a new level because what he does is anything you want to know, any process that you've always said, gee, I wish they explained that more. He goes into it. And it's everything from business to thinking about, how to deal with clients. There was just a shot of Imogen Heap.
Yeah.
And he does these. This is a typical Jeremy Cowart signature move. He'll take his new Canon. You know the new Canon 50 megapixel Canon?
Yeah.
And then he'll take this. This is an old 1960s film camera.
I love this. It's like a brownie.
And he'll shoot the Canon through this while putting laser beams, taking handheld lasers into here.
Right.
And the whole idea is to just do things differently and find a different angle to do things. He's an experimenter with light. Tell us a little bit more about that, Jeremy, because I think that's the coolest part of you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I guess I'm just infinitely curious. At the end of the day, I do love cameras. I am sponsored by Canon. But at the end of the day, I just love playing with tools. I love trying new things, using an iPhone as my light source, waving it in front of a camera on a slow shutter speed. I love playing with laser pens. Sometimes I'll go to a toy store and buy kids' toys and use those to see how I can change the light or shoot through textures or through things. So I'm always experimenting. I once took a camera in my kitchen and I took a lighter to it and I literally put the camera on fire.
Don't tell Canon you did that.
Well, this was an old $5 camera I bought at a garage sale. So
how important is that to keeping inspired and keeping fresh? Because that's one thing I have a problem with. One of the reasons I like to travel is because the new place gives me kind of a little juice to start taking pictures. But I find my day-to-day life, I kind of lose interest. Is that one of the ways that you keep your interest, Jeremy?
Yeah, absolutely. Always just, I'm just, again, a little bit ADD, a little bit curious, and I love just pushing the limits. And that picture there that you have on the screen, I actually printed out on paper, and I used acetone and different chemicals, and I smeared 2 pieces of paper together to create this weird process, and then I drew with pastels over the final print.
Interesting.
So I'm always doing a lot of mixed media. I come from a fine art background, so.
Did you see the article that blew up this week on the net? This was huge for photographers. I think it was Vincent Laforêt retweeted it, and that's how I saw it. The one about debunking the mirrorless myth. Do you know the article I'm talking about?
Don't tell me that. I just bought that new Sony A7R Mark II. Don't tell me the mirrorless is a myth.
We're going to open a can of worms. This is a can of worms.
Oh, actually, I like those. Okay.
But seriously, did you see that?
I did see that, yes. And
what do you think about that? Before you even answer, let me tell you why I'm asking you the question, because this is important to your answer. What I get from you is, these are good, aren't they?
Yeah, you're just going to get these away from me.
What I get from you is that people are always arguing about, should I buy Canon, should I buy Sony, should I buy Nikon, should I buy, this lens or that lens? And then you kill it with some artist, with some great music artist, by taking a plastic camera, and you do it all with lighting and with creativity, and really that is your signature move, all the cool stuff that you do, the experimenting that you do. So when I read this article of people arguing back and forth about mirrorless or DSLRs, it just reinforces again, it doesn't matter what camera you have. After I started working with you, I completely stop worrying about which kind of camera I bring out. Sometimes it's a mirrorless, sometimes it's a 4/3, sometimes it's my Nikons. It doesn't matter. Am I wrong?
I completely agree. It doesn't matter. I mean, I've been a Canon guy since high school. I remain a Canon guy, but I shoot and own all different types of cameras. Sony's making great cameras. Nikon's making great cameras. At the end of the day, I could care less. I could also really care less about resolution, all that stuff. I actually have the Fujifilm mirrorless cameras too. They're great. And it's just like a toolkit. You know, you pull things out for different reasons. And it really, at the end of the day, it's about your vision and your ideas and the best tools to achieve that vision.
Now, these great pictures of Kelly Clarkson, you obviously used a Canon 5D Mark III with those.
Yes, that's correct.
Because and a great lens, maybe that 85 millimeter f1.2.
Yeah, I do use that, and I love their new 24-70 2.8.
Really? You'll use a zoom in portraiture?
You actually do. I mean, I've tested the 24 against the 85, and it's just as sharp. And I just like the zoom because you use your feet less, and you can get a lot more quickly.
Yes.
Tell people how they can find out more about C University. I cannot recommend it enough. And again, I paid full price. I wasn't getting any bargains.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. That really does mean a lot. Yeah, it's just cuniversity.com, SEE.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we only open registration a few times a year, and we do that because, quite frankly, I don't like promoting it, and so shutting it down gives me breaks on promotion. And so, but basically, what you want to do is you want to join the email list. And as of today, just for you guys, just for this show, we added 2 bonuses. If you join the email list, you can download my photography toolkit, which shows you all the gear I use and why I use it.
Oh, nice! I'd love to get that.
And in addition, it gives you a free 20-minute video from C University. Nice. So we did that today just for this interview, and it's live as we speak. So,
how do you work with models to get them to give you that great
He shows you
pose? Is it? It's in there.
You.
Well, give us a little hint.
Yeah. Well, quite frankly, I start with this demeanor. I mean, I never, photo shoots should be fun. It's not saving lives. So I think a lot of it is about my attitude to begin with, which is really laid back. And I know posing, even for models, even for celebrities, is really an awkward thing.
Yes.
So you tell them right up front, like, hey, listen, I know this is awkward for you. I know you're insecure. We're all insecure. But you have to act like you're at home alone in front of the bathroom mirror, just goofing off. And I tell them, me and my crew, we see this every day. So no one's going to laugh at you. You just have to be confident. You have to own it. And, from there, that really sets the ground for them opening up and being more comfortable. And then I direct and I position as we go from there. But it's really about that beginning conversation of, trying to shut those fears down.
Look at that great shot. Do you take a lot of images?
Most photographers take more than I do. I pretend to, I prefer to approach it like a sniper rather than a machine gun. Because at the end of the day, I don't want to have 3,000 images to edit. I would rather have 600 to 800 images to dig through versus thousands.
Yeah. But it's really important to tell the client that we're going to take a lot of pictures, but we're looking for just one killer shot.
Right.
Because they say, you took 300, where are the 300?
Right.
No.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, they always only show, a handful of images from any shoot, if that. So, yeah, it really is about narrowing it down.
I like that black and white shot. I know that a lot of times the commercial restrictions of an album cover, you have to do it in color probably, but I love that black and white shot. Do you use black and white equally with color, or when do you use black and white? When do you prefer it?
Yeah, well, I shoot everything color, digital these days,
sure,
and then
as
I don't know.
Do, yeah.
A lot of times I switch. I don't know. It's just kind of a gut intuition kind of thing. You just know when an image should be black and white. I use both Adobe Lightroom and Phase One's Capture One Pro to do my raw processing, and I like each program for different reasons. You can get incredible results through both.
I love monochrome for portraiture. I don't know what it is, but in some ways, I guess you focus more on the
person and the colors, the backgrounds.
There's another type of monochrome now too. Everybody knows black and white, but a very trendy thing to do now is to completely shift the white balance. So the white isn't exactly white. The white may be yellow, and the black isn't black. The black could be slightly blue, and that's a very cool look today.
I love, Jeremy, that you're mixing analog with digital. It sounds like you do that a lot.
I do, yeah. One of my favorite tools that I think is brilliant is Impossible Project released their InstaLab, which basically means you can print old school Polaroids. You can print your digital images onto old school Polaroids through this little lab. You literally put your iPhone down on the lab and it basically scans your screen and then prints a legitimate Polaroid. It's really beautiful.
Didn't you shoot an album cover using an iPhone?
No.
Yeah. I've shot a couple using my iPhone.
Really?
Sure.
Why would you choose that? Where would get those worms away from me? Why would you say, oh, you know what, today I'm going to shoot it with the iPhone?
Well, there are actually a lot of things you can do with the iPhone, and really all the iPhone apps out there that you can't really get with a DSLR or Photoshop. So that's a long, winding road of a conversation. But yeah, I did a recent shoot of Johnny Swim. They're a really amazing married couple band, and we shot their whole shoot with an iPhone.
Doesn't the client look at you and think, I'm paying for this?
Yes, I'm sure they do.
Well, that was kind of an experiment for both of us. That wasn't a paid shoot. So yeah, that does get trickier if it's an actual paid shoot.
Do you use lenses on the iPhone or just shoot straight out of the back of it?
Yeah, I've played quite a bit with lenses. I do prefer the telephoto lenses because, you know, the 35 millimeter lens on an iPhone can really distort portraits especially. So if you get a longer lens on there, it'll make portraits look a lot nicer.
I know, isn't that great?
I love this mix of analog and digital.
Plus, just like Trey, this is a good guy too. So it makes you like him even more.
Yeah, I know Jeremy does a lot of great things.
Thank you for coming on with us. Is there anything that you want to say that we've left out? Because I always like to say that in an interview.
6 minutes. Oh gosh, I think we covered everything.
I mean, we can talk about the power. Next time you're on, we want to talk about the power of personal work, how you get discovered today.
I love that.
And he can talk a lot about that.
Yeah, there are a lot. I think a lot of people watching, I include myself in this, are avid hobbyists. We love photography, but getting to the above the average is really kind of a challenge. I don't want to just take snapshots. I want to take pictures that grab people.
That's why I work on tutorials constantly, and constantly learning, and you'll enjoy that too.
Well, here's the guy who can show you. C University. It's not open for enrollment right now, but Jeremy's very kindly put a video up there that you can watch and learn
for
from.
free.
Thank you. It's seeuniversity.com. Is that right?
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah, join the mailing list, and we'll be opening it back up in the fall.
Cool. And congratulations on your new kids.
Oh, no.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's
awesome.
Yeah. So your family is now...
Thank you.
Is your family 4 now?
Yes,
4 kids?
Two biological children and 2 adopted, and it is absolute chaos, but amazing.
Congratulations. Another person, by the way, who works with his wife. His wife is his partner as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to go.
Yep.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Absolutely.
We really appreciate your time.
Bye.
Jeremy Cowart, cuniversity.com. We've got another Help Me Q&A coming up in a second, but first, Robert Heron, our video expert from Heron Fidelity, on how to customize your color.
I'm home theater expert Robert Heron, and you can find me at Robert Heron on Twitter. I want to tell you right now, there are picture presets built into your TV that will give you perfect picture quality compared to what it looks like coming right out of the box. Now, the manufacturers have gone to a lot of trouble to optimize these picture presets for a variety of room conditions. Now, you could hire a calibrator to come out and professionally set up your TV, but using these picture presets is a good shortcut way, and it's already built in and something you can access for free. So pick up your remote, grab it, and then look for something. If you're fortunate, like on this particular remote, there's actually a picture preset button built right at the top, which makes it super convenient. However, you can go right into the picture settings and then select one labeled something like cinema or movie. That's going to give you the most accurate color and detail quality when you're watching your favorite content. Now, you might find that the picture doesn't look as bright or as colorful as some of those store modes like vivid or dynamic. However, it is going to give you the most accurate picture for the content you're enjoying. Now, if you do need a little extra brightness, like maybe you're watching it in a brightly lit room on the weekend where, absolute picture perfection is not critical, then switch to something like standard. That gives you the extra light output that you'll need to maintain good picture contrast and to enjoy the image. But again, remember that cinema movie mode is generally, from the manufacturer, their calibrated picture preset that comes closest to giving you the most accurate representation of the video that you're trying to enjoy.
The great Robert Heron, my good friend and longtime collaborator, going back to the screensaver days. We were talking about
him.
Isn't it great? I love Robert.
Yeah.
I love seeing you, too. Thank you so much for being here, Jim.
Thank you. My
really
pleasure.
appreciate it. So, now, that was Dawn's bag, that Think Tank Retrospective 5.
That was mine.
That's your bag.
Yeah, that's the same one you have.
It is. Our friend Trey Ratcliffe has done a new bag from Peak Design. Look at that. It's been on Kickstarter for 4 days. They were looking for $100,000. They already have almost $1 million. Unbelievable. He's sending us one of these bags. He actually showed us when he was in town. It was top secret at the time.
We're Peak Design.
But really cool.
Over the past 5 years,
They do amazing
It's
stuff.
not just for photographers.
No, it's
too.
a messenger bag.
Yeah.
With these amazing kind of like seatbelt buckles and very cool stuff. So if you're a photographer, you might want to go to Kickstarter and look at the Peak Design bag. This is really cool, although they don't really need your money. Because they're already doing... No, Trey's really excited about this. And I've been talking to him for some time. He's been working really hard with them to get like the bag that he would want.
That's cool.
Which means I want it too. Are you ready? Time for a Help Me! We got Tony from Latrobe, PA.
Leo, it's a longtime viewer since the old Tech TV days. As a matter of fact, I had to convince my wife to upgrade our Comcast account so I could watch you on Tech TV and the screensavers. But my question today is this. I have a Kobe Kiros tablet. And I love this thing. I know it's a couple of years old. I recently found out that Kobe's out of business. Dates are no longer available. Can you help me out? There are some markets out there for apps, but I was wondering if I could anyway find someone who would update the system. Or do I have just a brick and use it for a paperweight? Should I can't remember the appropriate term, jailbreak it, I guess is the term. Would that help me out any? I appreciate any help or comments that you can give me.
So those Kobe, we actually talk a lot about them on the GizWiz. I don't know why. Dick was really into Kobe stuff. I'm not surprised to hear they went out of business. This was really low-end, cheap. In fact, this was such a cheap Android tablet, they didn't even have Google Play services on it. You couldn't put the Play Store on it or anything. But Android is Android. And if you've got something that is Android, you can, in theory, it's not jailbreak it. You can, I think he's still there. You can root it, which means give yourself root access to it. Put a new recovery partition on it so that you can boot into a recovery mode that will allow you to install a custom ROM. So those are the three terms. Not jailbreak, that's for iPhones.
Can I ask you, how do you know all this stuff?
Because I'm constantly doing
amazing.
this. I love to root my phones. We've done some know-hows on this, right, Brian? And I think there's a lot of information on it. But the first thing you want to do is go to XDA Developers, XDA-Developers, and search for that tablet. Now, we did that, and he told us the model number off the air. As it turns out, the 8120, is it the 8120? He has the 8125. There is no custom ROM for that. However, if you browse around a little bit on XDA Developers, you'll find that people have used a mod for a different version. Normally, I don't recommend this. This is risky. But they've been able to use the 7015 rooting guide. So it works. It doesn't, you've got to be very careful. You should almost always use the root process for the exact model. I mean, not just like Galaxy S6, but Galaxy S6 Korea version or Galaxy S6 South America. You want to have it exactly the right model. In this case, I guess, because Kobe, you can kind of get away with a little something. And after all, it's not worth anything anyway. So if you trash it, it's not the end of the world. But apparently this mod will allow you to root it. Will allow you to put the clockwork recovery on it. There it is. There's information on the this YouTube channel. I don't know if this is the right one though. I think you want the 7150. You got to be very careful. But once you root it and put clockwork on there, you can update it. Be careful. Read carefully. Follow the instructions precisely. Otherwise, you could brick it. There's another term you might want to know about. Bricking it means it's completely useless, but you can actually update it, probably not to Lollipop level, but you can probably get a more recent version of Android, and more importantly, get the Google Play services on there. Once you've got that, then you can install apps. And
there has to be a user group for this too, right? For this particular.
You know, in a way, you're showing, like me, your age. There's no more user groups.
Wrong term, but you know what I mean.
But that's what XDA Developers is. The community is XDA-Developers.
A Facebook page about it.
Yeah, right. No, MySpace. I think it's MySpace now. All the kids are using it. No, you want to go to xda-developers.com. That is a great forum, is what it is. And what they've done is they've divided it up. You search for your device, and you should go to this section that's for your specific device. And generally speaking, if you're using a more modern phone, really read what people are saying there. There are phones you cannot root. The Galaxies, the Samsung's been really nasty about keeping people from rooting. You're an iPhone guy.
I'm an iPhone guy,
yeah. So jailbreaking's for an iPhone, and really all jailbreaking does on an iPhone is let you use a store besides Apple's store, and I don't frankly recommend it.
No, there are a couple of apps now and then that are only for sale outside the Apple Store that are worth it, but usually within a short period of time, somebody comes out with the same thing on the store.
And by the way, in most cases, both roots and jailbreaks take advantage of security flaws, and they get patched.
Yeah.
So that, and so you got to be, you're in effect getting around it. What's interesting is Google says very clearly, no, we want people able to root Android devices. That's okay with us. It's these other guys like Kobe or Samsung that might try to get in the way. Anyway, that's what you do. Go to XDA Developers, and apparently, is it the 7150? Is that what it was?
15?
15?
7127.
7127 root will work with the one you have. And so follow those instructions. At least that's what somebody said. That's what somebody said in the XDA forum. That's what you do. You go there and you see what the other hobbies.
Cool.
It's like a user group, only more like.
It's gonna beat me up.
More modern. More modern than a user group. All right. Hey, we're going to take a break and come back with more. How's your doorbell? Do you have a good doorbell, Jim?
I do. Do you have a better one?
This is the Ring video doorbell. Is this the doorbell you have?
No.
Look at this. Are you? You said you're kind of handy.
I am.
Yeah. So this is a doorbell that you would take. So this will work with existing wired doorbells. You know, you have the two wires coming out of a hole by your door. You unscrew your old doorbell and you hook this up, and it's an exact replacement for your existing doorbell. But it also has battery, so if you don't have an existing doorbell, you can use it as a battery-based doorbell. But this is cool. This is a camera, a wide-angle camera, and incidentally, they give you everything you need. Let me open this up to do this job. So not only do you get the Ring doorbell, but you also get drill bits. There's a level in here, a screwdriver handle, all the screws, everything you need, and a very good video, step-by-step instructions. So it's simple to install. I'm not exactly handy. It took me about an hour. But if you're handy, probably 10 minutes. It replaces your existing doorbell, but here's the difference. This is like caller ID for your house. When somebody comes up to the doorbell and rings it, look at this. You can see them. You can talk to them. And you can say things like, would you leave the package there? I'm in the shower. I can even do it from work. Anywhere on the internet, I can see and use my Ring doorbell. I love this thing. I am so happy with it. We use it all the time. And you even have motion detection. So if you want, you can set it up to notify you when the doorbell rings, but you can also set it up. Here's my Ring. Somebody was at the door the other day. Look at, oh, there's Michael. Oh, that's Mario. Hey, what are you doing there? That's our front door. That's literally our front door. Now, when somebody rings the doorbell, I can talk to them. I can accept it. I can't let them in. It's not that kind of doorbell, but I can talk to them and I can say, hey, please leave the package at the front door. R-I-N-G, ring.com. See, somebody's ringing our doorbell. Now, I have to tell you, those kids, punks, you're punks. I have to, and I can hear them. Can you hear them? I have to tell you, most home robberies occur during the day. I think like 70 or 80%. And almost always, the bad guy rings the doorbell first to make sure there's nobody home. Well, now you can see who it was. You're going to have a video of that person. It is awesome. Ring.com/NSS. Works with Android and iPhone. Normally $200. We're going to get you $25 off. $174 at ring.com/NSS. We use it at home. And actually, I want to put one out in the front of the brick house. We don't have the wiring there, but I can just stick it to the wall, and the battery lasts for a year.
Cool.
It's a lithium-ion battery. You charge it via USB, and it lasts for a year. It's awesome. What you said you wanted to give us music on hold for our...
No, I was thinking about that when callers call in.
Right now, they hear my voice. We should replace me with you.
I was thinking maybe something like this. First of all, you need the right music.
Okay. This is... Okay, can you record this now? This is going to be our new...
Thank you for calling. Your call is very important to us.
You can't laugh while you're doing it. You break. It's no
Why
good.
does everybody who makes an on-hold message say, your call is very important to us?
You know what?
I mean,
come on. Is it really? No. No.
Let's see. I need... Lisa, come here. Just stand right here for a second. And when I point to you, yell 6. Thank you for calling the Twit Brick House. There are now 6 people in the queue. Thank you. That was excellent.
That's how it works, actually. There's somebody sitting there.
So it's just a thought.
I hope we recorded that, because that's what you're going to get next time you call us. You know what the phrase that I hate? Not your call is very important to us. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride.
Yeah, what is that?
That kills me. Everybody says that now. Everybody.
I know.
All right, I'm sorry. Let's. We got a guest. You want to talk to Sarah Hinchcliffe-Pearson? You've probably seen her on This Week in Law. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, how are you?
I am great. So glad to get you on the new Screensavers. Sarah is senior counsel at Creative Commons. And I remember very well when Larry Lessig started Creative Commons, he said that public domain is not a good license, and he wanted to create a better license. What is Creative Commons, Sarah?
Sure. So Creative Commons is what we call some rights reserved model to copyright. So the way copyright law works is a little bit crazy in the digital age. It covers essentially everything that you do online, books, writing, even emails, and it happens automatically as soon as you write down the words or record the song. You don't actually have to, I think that's a common misconception, you don't actually have to register your copyright to have rights. And so that's the default. And what the Creative Commons licenses are is an option for creators to choose a way to grant the public rights to use the work without having to ask permission, as long as they comply with certain conditions.
So before Larry came along, it was really all rights reserved or zero rights reserved. And you're giving us something in the middle. For years, we've done our shows with a Creative Commons license. Tell us about the different licenses that are available.
Yeah, so I think that's another common misconception, is that there's just one Creative Commons license, but there are actually 6. And the way, it sounds complicated, but I think the nice, easy way to kind of figure out what's what is, it comes down to a couple of questions. So one is, do you want to allow commercial use of your work? And then the other is whether or not you want to allow people to adapt your work. And then I guess this third sub-question from that is, if you do want to allow adaptations, do you want to require that they share those adaptations back to you under the same terms? So that's the kind of span, and then there are different flavors in between using those different options.
How widely used, how widespread is the use of Creative Commons now?
We, this year, are expected to hit, I think, 1 billion Creative Commons licensed works online.
That's amazing.
Which sounds like a lot, but considering the amount of stuff online, it's a small fraction, of course, but it's certainly been a really, really successful experiment started by Larry over, I think, maybe 12 years ago, or
wow, has it been that
maybe
long?
even longer.
Wow,
yeah,
that's
it's
great.
been a while.
Go ahead.
Am I right that the reason why this is appealing to have a Creative Commons license is you want to put your stuff up on the web, you want to still retain ownership of it, but you don't want to lock it down. You want to give people choices that you can use it for non-commercial, or you could decide you can use it for commercial purposes. You can make a work that changes it in some way, as long as you get credit for it. Is that the reason for it?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think people are recognizing more and more that, with digital technology, you literally can't prevent copying of your work completely. And then combined with that, you're also competing with more sources, for attention than ever before in human history. And so a lot of people are taking that and saying, well, why not try to use the sharing ability of the internet to your advantage, and make sure that, you know, with all of the, I should have mentioned, with all of the 6 licenses, you're always required to give attribution back to the creator. So your name, even with the most permissive license, your name is always going to be connected to the work. Even when people adapt it, it'll always say, you know, based on a work done by the original author. So it's a good way to kind of, you know, get your name out there and get more eyeballs or listeners on your work.
There's also, I think in the name, there's a hint as to why this is commons. The idea of a commons in the early days of like English civil law was that there was a central place people grazed their cows, and it was common to everyone. A lot of New England towns have commons, and the idea was that in the creative space, we create standing on the shoulders of others. We are able to create because there is in the commons, kind of a virtual commons, a space where others' creations are there for us to use. And you know, Walt Disney's a good example. You know, he created Snow White and Sleeping Beauty based on what were public domain publications, the Brothers Grimm fairy tales, and then immediately copyrighted it so that nobody could use it again. And what people who use Creative Commons like me want to do is say, no, we're going to make our creative work. We don't want to lose control of it, but we'd like to contribute it to this kind of, you know, virtual commons so that others can build upon it, can make derivative works, or can share it with friends without having to worry about getting sued by some rights holder.
It's
it's a great thing.
It's also how you get discovered today. I mean, I can tell you endless big people. Casey Neistat, Fun with Louie, who's a major blogger. He just got a deal with Discovery, and he would have never have gotten that if he didn't put his stuff constantly up on YouTube and allow different licenses. I have to be very careful in photography, and I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not giving any kind of legal advice. But when you put your stuff up, you have to make it abundantly clear whether you want, whether it's copyrighted, number one, registered with the government office, because if it's not registered with the government, you can sue and get somebody to take it down, but you can't get any punitive damages. The judge will say, okay, you just spent $20,000 trying to get that guy to take your photo down, and now it's down. And you say, well, what about the $20,000 I spent? The judge says, tough. You didn't register it.
I actually didn't know that.
With Creative Commons, do you also have to, with photography, do you have to make sure that you register it with the Copyright Office?
That's a good question. I think actually to file a lawsuit in federal court, you might have to register your copyright.
Yeah, I think so.
So even if you applied a CC license to an unregistered work, you'd have to, if you're actually going to file a lawsuit, you'd have to file a registration, I believe.
But having the license and asserting it is often sufficient instead of going to court.
Very true.
Usually just saying, look, I got a license. Now, one of the greatest successes of the Creative Commons license is Flickr. Flickr allows you to choose a Creative Commons license for your pictures on Flickr.
It's like 6 to choose from?
Yeah, and it's made Flickr so great because there's so much on Flickr that you can use as long as you adhere to the Creative Commons license. But I think in general, photographers and other business people have been reluctant or maybe don't even understand the value of Creative Commons. So I know that you guys are working on a book, and you got a little Kickstarter going to raise money to create a book called Made with Creative Commons. And this is aimed at people who are business people, how they can use Creative Commons to their good. Is that right?
It's both business people and also just individual creators. But we're looking at the ways that businesses and people make money while they're using CC licensing. As you can see, we still, unlike the messenger bag, we still do need money in our Kickstarter. We're doing pretty well. We've got quite a bit of time left, and we're more than halfway there. But yeah, that's the idea, is that we don't think that we have a really good picture of kind of the full scope of how people are using the licenses and how they could use them. And so the idea is to create something that's kind of part taxonomy, part analysis, and then part how-to guide to help people that are looking at using Creative Commons licensing and want to figure out how to do it and make money, how to help them evaluate what they're doing and develop a new model.
Well, this is a great project. I know that Cory Doctorow is a great writer who's put much of, I think all of his work in the Creative Commons, distributes it freely, and yet makes a living as a writer. It really is possible to do both. And I think anything that can spread the word is great. So Kickstarter.com, search for Creative Commons, and the actual Kickstarter project is Made with Creative Commons, a book on open business models, still 19 days. And really, this is, you know, you're going to get, I guess, access to the blog and the book and so forth. But really what you're doing is you're donating in support of Creative Commons. And I'm going to kick in, too, because I think this is a great project.
Awesome.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, thanks so
Great
much.
to
It's
talk
great
to
to
you.
meet you guys.
Yeah, Sarah Hinchcliffe-Pearson, a regular on This Week in Law. She's the senior counsel at Creative Commons. Thanks, Sarah. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
I didn't know she was at Creative Commons. Creative Commons is revolutionary.
Isn't it? I think it's so great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've been a Creative Commons licensed business since day one, and I don't think it's hurt our business at all. Of course, we're ad supported, so really it's in our interest to get our stuff out everywhere it could possibly be. You can see our license at the bottom of every page.
The more you lock your stuff down, the more the web works against you anyway. You want to make things, you want to put it out there and ask, yeah.
Cast your loaf upon the waters, and it shall return to you 1,000-fold, my friend. We're going to take a break. Our mailbag is next. Ian Thompson of the Register has a tip.
Hi, I'm Ian Thompson, a reporter with the Register in San Francisco. In a non-tech related tip, I'm a big fan of cooking stews, which is in many ways one of the English cultural dishes. Now, 2 tips for making sure that you get a really good stew. First off, when you brown the meat and you've taken it out, put the vegetables in with a little bit of oil and then cover the pan and put it on the lowest possible heat for about 15 to 20 minutes. This means that the vegetables sweat their juices out into the bottom of the pan and it makes the whole thing much more tasty. Secondly, once you've actually put the meat back in and stewed the stew, don't eat it. Put it away in the fridge, leave it overnight so that all the meat breaks down and the juices get into it and the flavors mingle, and then heat it up the next day when you've actually got people around that you want to impress.
Ian Thompson of the Register. I think that's the first tip on English cooking that we've ever had on the News Screen.
You know, I never see you at the meetings anymore.
Are you the Grand Poobah now? I think you are, yeah. Congratulations on your ascension.
When I'm not pillaging the coast of Scotland, I'm on a tech show.
This thing hurts. This is like, I think this is, my daughter brought this back from Mexico. These are real bullhorns. Yeah. But this, I think, is old Coke cans that were hammered into, or something. It's not, you know how that culture is. It's all taking found art and making it something. Thank you. There's a shot. It's time for the mailbag. Send us in. You know, I have a tip for cooking stew, too.
Oh?
Oh, yeah. Here it is. Enjoy some fine Dinty Moore.
Look at this.
Yes, it's dinner. I told you we'd take you and Dawn out.
Should I pop this open?
Sure, have some stew. Wait a minute. I noticed, though, the can top is kind of dusty.
Yeah. Sorry, we're guys.
I don't know. Was this from our supplies for the earthquake in the cellar? I think it's been there for a while. Go ahead and enjoy some hearty
delicious
beef stew. No, bring me the mail back. You rolled the mail out. Okay, now you can take the mail bag. All right. Would you like... You know, when I'm recording voiceovers for ESPN, I like a hearty can of stew. How'd you get into voiceover work?
I started the way you did in radio.
Yeah.
And I just
you did a lot of ads.
Didn't have any
Do
other
an ad
talent.
for Dinty Moore Hearty Meals beef stew.
You know, when I'm not pillaging and destroying the coast of Scotland, I enjoy a good Dinty Moore beef stew.
Here, okay, that's good.
Okay,
take an email.
All right,
and enjoy it. I'll start.
It's not bad either.
Google will roll out, says Scott, their Google Fi cell service according to your zip code. I assume bigger markets will get the service first. I moved to a bigger market since I requested. Did you move there so you would get a Google Fi? Can I update? Will Google invite me to the party? Can I update my request with my new zip code? I've already looked in the Project Fi FAQ, but it doesn't address my issue. I think that I have not read this notion that you have that they're going to roll out Google Fi in bigger markets first. I think that we don't know. I got my Fi address. my invite, and I actually have Fi on my Nexus 6. Watch this week's Before You Buy for a review. I'm not sure Fi is something I would. It's one of the, it's like Gmail invites. Remember they were selling those on eBay when that first started?
Is this one of those Google things like where they put the internet up in the balloons, that project?
Like Project Loon?
Yeah, in other words, Google's always doing something incredibly interesting. And is it really going to be a product?
Well, I think it is going to be a product, and I'll tell you why. Because once you tie your phone to it or port your cell phone over to it, they have kind of a responsibility to keep that going, right? Or my phone number is going to stop working. I think they're serious about it. They're an MVNO. They're reselling service from T-Mobile and Sprint. They're combining that with Wi-Fi. So your phone, and this is why it only works with the Nexus 6, decides what's the best signal, T-Mobile, Sprint, or Wi-Fi, and then uses that. The idea being that you've got kind of more flexibility, better performance, and they can keep the price down. It starts with a $20 fee for the basics, that's voice, text, and then you pay $10 a gigabyte, but only for the data you use, and they break that down to the kilobyte. So you say ahead of time, for instance, here's an example, I'll take 3 gigs of data, so that's $50 a month. If you pay ahead. If you use less than that, then the next month they reduce your fee.
Oh, great.
If you use more than that, they charge you, and they give you free tethering. I don't think it's necessarily a better plan than some of the weirdo plans that T-Mobile offers, for instance. But the fact that it's Sprint, T-Mobile, and Wi-Fi, the fact you get international, get the T-Mobile style international calling and all of the international data for free. Tethering is free. I think that's desirable to some people. You only pay for the $10 a gigabyte. Doesn't matter if you're tethering or it's on your phone. I'm not sure I'd run out. And the negative is you have to use Nexus 6, which is, I'm not sure that's going to be the greatest phone ever for most people from now on.
But it's an interesting Google project.
It's not like Google Gigabit, the Gigabit Ethernet, which, gosh, I would kill to get.
Yeah.
To answer your question, I don't know. They haven't said anything, but I don't know if your premise is even correct, that they're going to go by. It seems to be completely random who's getting picked. The only reason I got an invite is because we begged Google. Father Robert got one.
And it's available here?
It's available, well, in theory, anywhere in the U.S.
Really?
But you have to have T-Mobile and Sprint service.
Okay.
Yeah, in theory, it's available anywhere. They're not sending out the invites particularly rapidly. fi.google.com if you want to find out more. There's a lot more on there before you buy a review. What do you got there?
Dear Leo and the gang, I'm looking to change my cable internet service currently with AT&T Uverse, but in an effort to cut costs, I'd like to eliminate my home phone and replace it with an IP telephony options. But I'm not real sure what the best options are. Should I go with something like Vonage?
No!
Or port my home phone number over to Google Voice?
No!
What other options are there? Well, that settles that, doesn't it? What other options are there that would be low cost? Thanks for any help and direction you can provide. Thanks, Lee.
Do you use any VoIP solutions?
You know what? Dawn could talk about this because she runs this part of it. We don't, because you do, don't you?
We use Ring Central.
Okay.
In the office.
Then I will try that. I will try.
Yeah, Ring Central's been good. That's a commercial service. It's not for consumers.
Yeah.
There's Uma. There is Vonage. I don't think Vonage is particularly good. The problem with VoIP at home is it relies on your internet, and if the internet's bad, it's not going to work very well.
There are people all over Long Island who have that in their homes, and not the commercial service.
Yeah, but Sandy hit, and they couldn't make a phone call.
And you can't make a phone call, but not even with Sandy. I mean, when the line goes down. But you could say that about regular telephone service, too. Why?
I think regular telephone service, because of a long history of federal regulation,
they seem to know it better.
Stays up a little bit better than... I'm not a big fan of VoIP. By the way, Google Voice is not VoIP. So don't confuse that with a VoIP solution. Google Voice... you should get a Google Voice account because it's free. I don't know what the future holds for Google Voice. You should definitely get one, though. And what you do is you get a new number, which you then forward to your existing numbers, and you give out that new number. And then if you change numbers or whatever, it's kind of always the same number. It's like your permanent one-time number.
This is very hard for... Explain that to Grandma,
forget
to have that service. And the more complicated they make it, I don't like it. I don't know.
My mom, who was a grandma, I said to her, Mom, because of Hurricane Sandy and winter storm, she lives in Rhode Island, I said, get a landline phone. You can get Lifeline service, that's fine. The minimum service, which is usually in most areas around $20 a month. And make sure you get a phone that doesn't plug into the power. Get a phone that gets its power from the phone jack, because that will work even in an emergency, even when the power goes out.
Then you have 911 with
and
no
you have
problem.
real 911, you have emergency services. For, a cell phone is really what most people use nowadays, right? Use a cell phone, that's fine, and then have one powered phone, it's powered by the phone company, that you can do 911 with for emergencies.
Unfortunately, I think that is excellent advice. I wish that there were more options, more VoIP options that were absolutely.
I don't know. What do you?
dependable.
We'll ask our chat room and our viewers to email us what works for you.
Yeah.
I had Vonage for years. It just was not reliable enough to use. Ooma, I hear good things about. That's a peer-to-peer service. A lot of people use. I think Skype works pretty well. You can use what they call a SIP phone, which is an internet phone with Skype. Maybe that's the best.
Sometimes I'll call on Skype because I use Skype every day for doing sessions.
Do you really? So
yeah,
the
but they don't.
is
no,
on
no,
Skype.
No, it's just so that they can direct.
And you record locally.
Yeah, they can hear me in pretty good quality on Skype, and I record locally.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of times where I will call and it will just keep hanging up. It will never reach them for no reason at all.
Welcome to our life.
I know.
Can you imagine? I mean, that's how we do everything, is via Skype. I just do it to torture our technical directors. John M. I have an Asus VivoTab RT. It has Windows RT 8.1 on it. Being that I have Windows 10 on my desktop for the past month, I really don't see the need for RT when all the apps Microsoft makes that I use are available on Android. That's true. Microsoft has started putting out all of its stuff on Android and iOS first. Is there a way to install Android for Windows RT 8.1? No. BlueStacks said 3 years ago they were working on an RT app. A lot of companies said that. BlueStacks is a good solution, and it does work well on Windows and Mac to run Android apps, and they've gotten better and better. I don't know of any way to do it on RT. And frankly, Microsoft did say they're going to update RT one more time. I think RT's dead, unfortunately. I think one of the things Satya Nadella did is he killed RT.
But 10 is still the Wild West a little bit. We'll see what happens.
I don't know. Are you going to go to Windows 10 on your astronomy computer?
I will.
Sure, why not?
Yeah.
Jim Cutler, you're the greatest. It's so nice to see
Thank you, Leo. You're the greatest. Been a fan forever.
I hope you've enjoyed having dinner together.
This was delicious.
Fabulous stew.
Would you like some beef stew?
Is it good?
It's actually quite good.
Yeah. Same factory they make Alpo in.
No, he said it. It's his network.
It's not true. It's not true. It is the same factory they make Spam in, though. So that's okay.
Is it?
Yeah, it's Hormel.
I like it.
Who is Dinty Moore, anyway? I feel like
he owes me money.
He's like Paul Bunyan. He's like there should be some restaurant in the Midwest with a giant Dinty Moore and his blue ox out front. You think?
Absolutely.
There he is. Ultimate roast beef sandwich. But it doesn't have any roast beef in it, which is the beauty part. Thank you all for being here. We really appreciate it. If you want to be in our live studio audience, you guys have been great. You email tickets@twit.tv. We'll put a seat out for you. You can watch us do the show live, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, 2200 UTC. You can also get it on demand, twit.tv/NSS or wherever finer internet shows are delivered to your device.
Aye,
me mateys. Are we Viking pirates?
The twit is in the can.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on the new Screensavers. Bye-bye, everybody. Cupcakes for all.